Welcome to Lecture 2 from the Snowday Makeup on March 4th, 2013. This is for CMST 102. When we left off in Lecture 1, we had just finished the questions of topic, which I kind of like to think of as the logical questions to ask. But now we have some other considerations to make when it comes to persuasion. The first of these is ethos. I hadn't planned on introducing you to ethos quite yet, but it's the only term I could think of that really encompassed everything that needs to be discussed. Ethos refers to credibility, and in particular, the speaker's credibility. Who they are as a speaker can really affect how persuasive they are, whether or not people believe them. So a couple of things to consider here. First of all is trustworthiness. Now, trustworthiness is pretty straightforward. Basically, are they individuals that we can actually trust? And there are a lot of different things that you could take into consideration with this. Are they trustworthy for a particular topic? Are they experts in their field? What is their background like? Do they have a criminal background? Do you have a reason to distrust them? Trustworthiness is sometimes ethereal. It's just hard to say why you don't trust someone, but you don't trust someone. Sometimes that's a factor that's very difficult to control. And you control things like that primarily through focusing on your appearance, focusing on your delivery style, controlling everything that you can possibly control, and hoping that that's enough. So trustworthiness. Can you actually feel like you believe someone safely and that they're actually speaking truth? Next is open-mindedness. Individuals should not just be speaking on their own topic and not even acknowledging other points of view. It can be important to acknowledge the validity of other points of view because that indicates that you've actually really considered this. It also means that you're not totally going to alienate someone who maybe holds an opposite view of you. They can at least say, well, okay, maybe he disagrees with me, maybe she disagrees with me, but at least they considered it and have explained the reasons why they disagree. So that open-mindedness is good not only for your speech and for thinking about it logically, but also for appealing to a wider range of audience. Competence. Is an individual a competent speaker? Have they researched well? Are they delivering their speech well? Simply put, do they seem like they are smart individuals? Are they using good language? If not, their competence is called into question, and you don't want to be taking arguments and information from someone who doesn't seem competent. Think about some of the worst professors you have ever had. Hopefully, I am not one of them. I hope. But think about some of your worst professors, okay? How do they act? Are they someone who speaks smoothly and confidently and really seems to know their stuff, or do they stumble around, use lots of notes, barely rely on anything outside of book material and PowerPoint? Do they teach innovatively, or are they strictly lecture, exams, very old school? Competence of your instructor is a really good example of how one's ethos in relation to competence is affected. So keep that in mind. You have to appear like you are an intelligent, hardworking, competent human being. And dynamism. Dynamism is actually going to kind of develop a little bit in the next section as well, the next thing to consider. But I wanted to give you a heads up on it now. If you are not a dynamic speaker, if you do not have vocal variety, if you're strictly in monotone, if your volume stays the same the whole time, if you're stiff as a board, no gestures, no change of posture, no facial expressions, basically, if you are not a changing individual, if you look like a robot in your speech, you are not dynamic. And that really reads poorly with an audience. The audience wants to be engaged. They want to see someone who actually cares about their topic. If it doesn't seem like you care, the audience has no reason to care either. Because clearly you don't think it's that important. Why should they care? Dynamism is really, really, really important. It's easy to underdo or overdo dynamism, but doing dynamism right I would say can actually cover up little slip-ups in the other three. Um, for example, this past weekend, I saw a speaker who was incredibly dynamic. He was a fantastic speaker. But in terms of his competence and his logical reasoning in his speech, I felt like he didn't make a lot of sense. There were two judges in that round. I gave him the seventh place out of 7, because I did not think his speech worked logically. I was able to see past the dynamism. I didn't think it was that strong. However, another judge who was judging with me at the time, she gave him first place. She said he was engaging, he was passionate, he clearly cared about what he was talking about, and therefore she picked him up because he was the one who engaged her the most. Now, there's no right or wrong answer as to who judged correctly. Speech is very subjective, and there are multiple ways you can judge events. But I bring that up because his dynamism covered up what I thought, anyway, were some pretty serious logical flaws. I'm not saying cover it entirely with delivery. You should still be working on your arguments, and just like I caught his logical flaws, I will catch yours, so watch out for that. But dynamism can cover up some of the little mistakes you may make in the moment. If you stay passionate and you stay dynamic, you can recover from pretty serious flubs. So keep that in mind. But what I want you to remember is that context matters. In some speeches, some of these ethos elements are going to be more important than others. For example, in this particular event that I was just discussing, it was impromptu speaking. Many people do not judge impromptu speaking as harshly in terms of logic because they have a minute 30 to prepare their speech based on a quotation that they get. So lots of people are a little bit lighter on the logical judgment, and they focus more on how well did you deliver, how well did you engage me, how well did you convince me. But again, on the same token, I want to point out that I judge less on delivery because it is impromptu. They don't have time to practice. I judge dynamism less than I would the competence. So that all varies. But my point is that these are not all equal. There will be some situations where one outweighs the other. Let's consider a different speech event. For example, after dinner speaking, which is humorous persuasion. It's kind of seen as persuasion light. Arguments and topics and really, really significant things kind of go out the window, and it's all about how funny you are, how engaging are you, what's your delivery style like. That dynamism is what really drives ADS home, and that's something that I can and do agree with. ADS is an opportunity to talk about a little bit lighter topics than you would in a persuasive speech. So, context matters. These are not all equal elements. Before we move on, it's time for word number 2 in your extra credit quiz to make sure that everybody is watching these lectures. Your second word, I'm going with a fruit theme here for some reason. I started with banana and kept on going. The second word I want you to be able to write down in that extra credit quiz is tangerine. Tangerine. I wasn't sure how to spell tangerine myself for some reason, so I thought I'd spell it out for you. Moving on, appealing to emotions. This is something that really, really makes persuasion. You can have all of the other elements. You can have ethos. You can have some of those logical questions that you're asking, but emotion is what can really sell an audience. And this kind of does relate to the dynamism point. Being an engaging, really powerful speaker. Use effective language. Now, I do use the term affective here, not effective. Affective. When you are trying to affect something, you are trying to make a change. That's an action. So the goal of language here is to be able to make a change in your audience. Really use strong terminologies as much as you can. Use something that you think is going to evoke a certain response for your audience. For example, when discussing the war on terror, this is a pretty standard social studies example, but I feel it's an important one. Are People rebelling against a government or against a particular country, are they terrorists or are they freedom fighters? Depending on which side you are persuading for, you might choose to use one of these terms. Your goal is to appeal to something in particular in the audience. Americans tend to use the word terrorist. We want to paint them negatively, and it works pretty well. On the other hand, though, those who are recruiting for Islamic extremist groups, for jihad, they may tend to use the word freedom fighter or the equivalent in their language. Now, again, this is all about. I'm not trying to value the situation at all. I'm simply pointing out that there is a clear language difference and a clear persuasive emotional difference in the use of those terms. I don't mean to point that out culturally. Just making an observation about language choices. Okay. Identify shared values. If you can figure out how to tap into something that the audience already values, then you kind of strike gold in terms of persuasion. For example, if you wanted to discuss gay marriage to a group of Christians, what do you know that they believe in? What are their values? Acceptance, love, the list could go on and on. A gay Christian has the ability to tap into some of those and say, look, I still believe in this as well. I believe in acceptance and love, so why are gays and lesbians not accepted and not loved? That's a strong persuasive element that, if nothing else, it creates kind of a confused sense of value that can throw off, that can have an opportunity to persuade. All right, so keep that in mind. If you're looking for an example of that, I would look up speaker Matthew Vines. He is a gay Christian, and he gave a really fantastic speech about being a gay Christian. Use vivid detail. Lots of detail means that the audience can more clearly see the picture and can connect. Related to this is visualization. Paint a picture for us. All right? Show us what you are discussing. Show us the pain that someone goes through when they're ostracized by their church. Show us the struggles of these Islamic groups who are fighting against Western oppressors. Show us, and we're more likely to attach and believe. You can also use pictures. I'm going to discuss that more in the visual aid unit that is coming up on Wednesday. But there are lots of different ways you can visualize. And compare the familiar and unfamiliar. If you're talking about something that's unfamiliar to your audience, talk to them about something that is familiar and then draw the comparison. It makes it much easier for them to attach to the unfamiliar rather than just thinking that's strange and unusual and then just not attaching to it at all. So remember that. Familiar is kind of that gatekeeper, that doorway to the unfamiliar, and you can make that connection. All right. That's the end of this particular lecture. I'm going to have 2 more lectures here coming up shortly. What I want you to do is work on your topic selection, okay? Hopefully you'll have them done by Wednesday. If not, please email me and we'll work on it that way. I'll explain more in class on Wednesday exactly, but think about what you want your persuasive topic to be. All right? Thank you all very much. I do have 2 more lectures I'm going to be doing, so if you would, please move on to lecture 3. I will see you there.